Hello everybody, another Mr. Fusion video here talking about the Dragon Ball Daima new series, episode 3, which is called, let me check my notes here, Daima. Well, that seems appropriate. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of the way. I thought this was a very good episode. The first two episodes were very much set up, and this still is to an extent, but it did kind of feel like the first standard episode, where we're kind of off to the races, we're in the demon realm, things are starting to move, we're starting to get an idea of what this series might be like week to week, and that's what's really important. It's important to see if it's going to be able to sustain itself. And I always go through this kind of scenario when I'm being introduced to a new story arc in Dragon Ball. I am always super excited whenever a new story starts. I am always right on board, rubbing my hands together. Oh, I hope this is going to be good, and picking out every little bit I can to go, oh, I like that, I can't wait to see where they take that. And I will say, in a lot of cases in recent years, the openings are usually my favorite part, because then as time goes on, I see that, oh, that doesn't go anywhere, or that's handled really poorly, or this got really boring. But I keep coming back for more. And I don't know the future, so all I can say is that this episode was really enjoyable, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed. If nothing else, this series continues to be very beautiful to look at. This is what Dragon Ball Super should have been. And I'm not someone who really gets all that caught up in how good the art is. I do care about those things, and I do notice those things, but at the end of the day, I'm about the story and the characters, and all of those other things are used to facilitate them. Good art can buoy up a good story. Good art, for me, can never save a bad story, though. So, brief synopsis. Goku Mini, Shin Mini, and Glorio, I'm not going to do that. I promise I'm not going to do that. Have flown off in Glorio's plane to the Demon Realm. They arrive at the Demon Realm. They get into a little bit of an altercation, and then their plane gets stolen. And now that I have recapped that, I realize that not a lot actually happens in this episode, but it is a lot of fun because it is still sort of coasting on that kind of newness factor, and we can definitely give it a pass up to a point with that. But also, I think what sells this episode, for the most part, is just how excited Goku is about everything. Nozawa Masako is always extremely fun as Goku, and she's even cuter as child Goku. And so just seeing him react to everything, even with some of the weaker points of the episode, which I'll get to in a minute, she is enough to carry that. She, Nozawa, and he, Goku, the character, are enough to carry that just by this pure sense of wonder and happiness and pure joy and exhilaration. There's great moments. Goku gets into a verbal argument with Warp-sama. That's the name of the giant fish guys who open up portals from the demon realm to from the regular realm, living realm, to the demon realm, whatever. And it's like Goku's just immediately, his usual Goku way of not really reading the room of when to be respectful, of just going, hey, it's a big old goldfish! And Warp's immediately like, I'm not a goldfish. Yeah, you are a goldfish. I'm not a goldfish. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I also like that the planet they go to find Warp, it looks like a big old waffle, and it kind of makes me want waffles. But yeah, Goku having fun with the goldfish, and him exploring the world and chasing off after critters, and, Kaioshin having to make Goku pointy ears so he can fit in the demon realm. All of that is really cute, and that kind of reminds me of Star Trek, of how many times characters will have to blend into an alien society and they get surgically altered to look like a Romulan or whatever. And Romulan's the first time that happens, so it very much is pointy ears happening. So that's really cute. Some of the stuff feels pretty generic in a broad sense. is in, oh, here our posse's going to a new place and going to this little town and gotta check in at the seedy hotel, and they're trying to rip us off. Then they're going to the seedy bar, and some local comes up and says, I don't like your face, and they get into a bar brawl. It's all stuff that's pretty routine in general fiction, but we don't see it that often in Dragon Ball, especially not since the early days. This seems like something that would be right at home in the first few arcs, the first 3 arcs of the story, the Hunt for the Dragon Balls, 21st Budokai, and Red Ribbon Army arc. And actually, the animated series adds in a filler scene introducing lunch in a very similar way in a bar like this. But it's something that once the series got really big into just, really, really long one-on-one fight sequences, that stuff like this kind of went by the wayside, and it's so nice to see it again. It's so refreshing to see in Dragon Ball. But now that I've gotten all that out of the way, I do want to talk about something that's kind of been gnawing at me from the very beginning, and you'll have heard me talk about it before, but it is about how this series handles exposition, and kind of how Dragon Ball in general has been handling exposition. So I said earlier that after I summarized the episode, I realized that not a lot actually happens. And that's because a lot of this episode, just like the first 2, is dedicated to exposition, of characters explaining things. And I want to be sure that I'm being very clear about this, because I don't want people to think that I don't like characters to talk. I don't want people to think that I'm not interested in all of the new details that we're getting, because I really am. And I don't want people to think that I just want us to get to the action. What I am saying with all of this is that Dragon Ball, and especially in recent years, doesn't seem to know how to convey information unless they're just having characters vomit it all out. And that is not an ideal way to do that. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes it is the best way. Sometimes you just have to, just do it. But that should be used sparingly, and more ideally, these are things that should be woven into natural circumstances. It should be teaching you things. The story should be teaching you things. But when it's done at its best, you shouldn't really be noticing it. You should just be learning and absorbing things. And in recent years, I think that Granola was kind of the worst offender of this in the Dragon Ball Super manga, where that story is just so heavily tilted, where it's just the first few chapters are just blah, 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 explain, the heaters are this, blah, 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 Granola is this, blah, 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 I live here, blah, 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 this is my backstory, blah, blah, blah. And then they fight. And this ties back into this sort of Toriyama memo, or an interview he gave a few years ago, where he said that, basically the way he delivers these story outlines to the powers that be so they could craft Dragon Ball Super was that he would say, oh, I'd write down all the information, and then at the end it would say, and then they fight. And that's, I think, is why a lot of Dragon Ball is structured that way, as opposed to when Toriyama was in there week to week and being able to feel out a pace for things. Because, a slow pace is fine. It's what you do with it. That's what's been bothering me about Daima, especially in the first episode, where again, it's not that the problem was the pace was slow, because the second episode's pace was slow too, and I really enjoyed that. It's just that it was spent just vomiting out exposition. And so this episode starts to kind of feel like a travelogue. Where it's like the 3 characters are in a plane, and it's constantly, oh, here are the volcanoes that put out gas. Oh, here's our planet, and it's full of different vegetation. Oh, don't fall into the sea of darkness, or otherwise you'll never get out. And like I said, I don't want to dwell on this too much or make it seem like it's too big of a deal, because again, I really enjoyed this episode, and if nothing else, Goku helps sell this by being so excited about everything. It is just something that I've noticed, especially given how blatant the first episode was about this, that I hope they don't stay in a habit of this. Let me give you an example. So there is a lot of information we get, interesting information about how the demon world works, which again is all just kind of Glorio giving the tour, where it's like, oh, here are the 3 docking rings to enter the demon realm, and the first one is for these people, the really special people, and the third one, and basically is establishing there's kind of a caste system here, and then they get inside, and it's kind of exposited again. Oh, there's a giant hole in the ground. Well, those are the holes that used to link the 3 demon realms. And really, and then it got closed off, and so we can't intermingle. And then, after that, a few minutes later, just apropos of nothing, Shin and Glorio were talking, and Glorio says, hey, you're a Glend. You're from the 2nd demon world, aren't you? And it's like, all of this is just characters getting around and saying, hey, did you know this? Did you know this? Did you know this? And it's a bit stiff and awkward. And it really, again, like I said in my review of the first episode, it kind of feels like this is being written for people to make Wikipedia entries about, as opposed to telling a story. And it's like, just off the top of my head, given what this episode gives us, why couldn't this have been delivered in a more natural way? Like, when they go to the bar, instead of having the demons pick a fight with Goku because of his ears, and I mean, like, why did they take away his pointy ears at all? If you're gonna be in the demon realm, why not just keep them? That's kind of weird. What if they had instead accosted Shin? They're in the 3rd demon world right now. This is supposedly a lower caste. So what if they see Shin and they say, hey, I reckon you're one of those Glens, aren't you? You're from the hoity-toity 2nd world. And then you deliver the exposition that way. That's when we find out that there is a caste system here. And that's when we find out what the relationship between these groups of people are, as opposed to just having the characters say it for no good reason. That's storytelling. That's all I'm saying. When I complain about too much exposition, it's not that I don't want to learn the lore. I do, but I don't want it to be secondary to the storytelling. Still, though, I'm having a lot of fun with this, and I can't wait to see where it goes next. Their spaceship is stolen. I guess now that I say that, I'm immediately thinking, isn't that how the 3rd episode of Dragon Ball GT ended as well? So I think we're still drawing those comparisons. But then again, I kind of liked early Dragon Ball GT. You know, the characters get to the planet or the place, their destination, where they're going. In the 3rd episode, they, mingle with the locals, they get into a bit of trouble, and then their spaceship's gone. Yeah, that's very much episode 3 of Dragon Ball GT. But I don't want to get lost in the weeds here. Obviously, I have to make a big correction from last week. I did pin a comment about this not long after I uploaded the video. Yeah, despite the fact that I talked about both Goku's shorter limbs and how he's getting used to his body and him going to get the Nyoibo, I somehow failed to make the connection there that was the reason. And I, complained that it seemed like there wasn't enough of a motivation for Goku to get the Nyoibo. There is. There totally is. There totally is. And I had been so enamored by the things that those individual pieces were reminding me of. The Nyoibo being similar to Goku finding the Nyoibo before, or even Kame-sennin, using the Basho Sen for mundane reasons, and comparing Goku's movements and abilities to what happened in Dragon Ball GT, that I just somehow did not connect those two things together. Because I was having too good of a time to use too much of my brain. But yeah, that's my issue with doing unscripted videos. Even when I script them, I'll be close to being done editing a full video and realize, oh God, I got something wrong, and then having to run back in and re-record something at the last minute. So, I'm especially vulnerable when I'm just talking into a microphone. And if it makes you feel any better, all that night I was lying in bed, just feeling like a complete schmuck for having messed up something so obvious and going, oh, I'm so much shame. I woke up Saturday morning, I didn't even want to get out of bed. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna just find so many comments of people telling me this, and I'm just gonna be so embarrassed. I know what it is. I know I made the mistake. All right, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, so I have one more thing I want to talk about this week. And that is something else besides my mistake about the Nyoibo that I got a lot of comments on last time, where people saying, hey, isn't that cool that the theme song makes a reference / tribute to Toriyama in the lyrics of the song? I can't believe you didn't talk about that. And the reason I didn't talk about that is because I did not notice it. I think by the time I was getting those comments, I had seen people's screen caps demonstrating that. And yeah, it's like very much in the transcribed lyrics on the screen, because, anime openings tend to almost always, I think, put the lyrics of the song, at the bottom of the screen. And not only are they in there, but they write out the parts of his name in the alphabet. There's a Tori, there's a Yama, and then there's an Akira. And I'm looking at these going, how did I not notice this? I try to listen to dialogue, as I've said before, so I can pick up on things that might not be conveyed in the subtitles. But I'm not fluent and I don't pick up on everything. But here, it seemed like they were really trying to direct people's attention to that. It wasn't trying to be subtle. And so I was scratching my head wondering, how could I have possibly missed that? This week, I realized how I missed that. And that is because if you're watching this on Crunchyroll, they take out the transcribed lyrics to the songs. And I am really not happy to realize that. And as soon as I noticed that, I was like, wait, is this something they typically do? And I'm sure I'm going to have lots of comments. I have never, I don't typically have Crunchyroll. I don't use their services. So I'm sure people are going to tell me, oh yeah, that's standard. What are you surprised about that for? But yeah, I don't. So I went back and I was looking at Dragon Ball Super, and yeah, they did it for that too. And I'm like, oh my god, yeah. And I'm really frustrated by that because, at this point, I'm used to Funimation and now Crunchyroll just stripping their openings and endings and putting in their own English translated credits when they put it out on home video, which is why I don't buy their products anymore. But I figured if I was coming in on day one, that I could avoid all of that stuff and just get the completely unmessed with original product. But no, if you're watching this in Japan on Amazon, those details are there, but they've been scrubbed out for the Crunchyroll version that we get over here. And I'm guessing, I was almost certain that Toei is the one doing it because they'd have access to the original materials, but I'm guessing that Crunchyroll requested it so that it wouldn't get in the way of their subtitles. But this just doesn't make any sense to me because I have watched tons and tons of DVDs and Blu-rays of this stuff over the years, and I've seen you can put so much stuff on here without that getting in the way. I've seen, the Dragon boxes, for example, have both the original, lyrics embedded in the footage. They have the subtitles, the English subtitles over that, and then the Romanized lyrics as super titles at the top of the screen. You can have it all. You can really have it all. So why do we need to cut this stuff out? And I know that I'm going to have people tell me that I'm nitpicking with this, and it's not the biggest deal in the world. At least the credits are there, and that's already helped me out, as I, talked about things from the voice credits last week. But you can't tell me that it's not a big deal when it's actively causing me to miss things. This is what people were talking about last week. And again, it's not subtle. It's almost literally the show putting bright flashing arrows at these particular words and saying, hey, notice this. And because they're taken away, people aren't noticing this. So it just seems like no matter what, whether it's Funimation, whether it's Crunchyroll, whether it's Toei, there is just... it's almost impossible to get any Dragon Ball property without it being futzed with in some way, and it drives me crazy. And I'm just gonna say it right now, Seed of Might does this stuff a lot better. Why is the official release always so much worse than what fans are doing? And yeah, if you've never seen Seed of Might, they're not only putting really stylized subtitles that match the font of the original Japanese text, they are putting in, translations of credits. They're not taking things away, they're adding things in, and you can turn them off and you can customize them, you can switch out different options. Oh, it's so nice, it's so nice. But yeah, all of that aside, that's a really cute tribute to Toriyama, and I'm glad that I know about it now. So that's about all I have for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep doing this for every single episode, especially once I get into Dragon Ball Dissection December in a month. I'm kind of panicking, wondering what I'm going to do about that. But as of right now, I'm going to try to continue with this. People seem to like it. So thanks for watching. Please check out my Dragon Ball Dissection series if you're new here. Please comment, please subscribe, please like, all of that stuff. And I do stuff that's not Dragon Ball as well. I do Donkey Kong Dissection. I've done Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon. I do Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I got tons of videos, so please check them all out, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye!